Welcome to episode 25 of Aussies Taking Over the NBA. Today we've got a Aron Baynes season preview. The man from the Boston Celtics. The big man signed a new deal this season.
You did indeed.
But also don't forget to look us up on SoundCloud under Aussies Taking Over the NBA. We're on hashtag The Collective Podcast Network. We are also on iTunes and Pod Addict, I do believe, as well as
YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, tell us how much you love it, tell us what you want to hear. We all like that stuff. So
give us a review on iTunes too.
Yeah, go nuts.
Just thought of that. I haven't actually plugged that. Review us, give some stars. Helps get us out there. If you want to check out any of our other stuff, we've just completed a Mitch Creek season preview, a Ryan Brokoff season preview, and we've done some summer league stuff previously, but obviously, we're cranking out the content. It's not long to go till preseason starts. I think it's about 12 or 13 days until the NBA preseason starts. And also check out our Sydney Kings podcast, On the Kings Dime.
Yep.
If you are into the NBL, if you love your basketball, we're doing a Sydney Kings-based podcast, which we may eventually turn into an NBL full-based podcast if we care enough later down the track. But certainly so far we're having some fun doing that Sydney Kings one. So that's been pretty good. But yeah, like, share and subscribe and give us some feedback because we really appreciate all of our listeners listening, and there are people listening, which is great.
There are.
So Aron Baynes, as we noted in our season wrap-up, which was a while back, I think it was about episode 15 or 16, they'd just gone out to the Cavaliers in a 7-game series against a very, very up-and-down Cavaliers team that I thought they could have beaten personally.
They probably should have beaten, but
I think they might have. Yeah, probably should have beaten.
Should have bet a bit.
But that's playoff basketball. LeBron James.
That's LeBron basketball.
He's been to the finals, obviously 7 or 8 times in a row, and obviously now left the Eastern Conference, which is a big thing for the Celtics.
But also because they've got Hayward and Kyrie.
Coming back
into a team that took them almost to the promised land. So with a kind of second string lineup, obviously Terry Rozier being pretty good.
Yeah, he did well.
Phoenix tried to pinch him. That's what I was thinking about. So he's going to come back into a second string role, and Tatum having the breakup season. Yeah. Not really the breakout season. I think the breakout back end season and the breakout playoffs. I think he played really well in the playoffs. His regular season stats didn't kind of give him justice to what he did in the playoffs. But this is about Baynesy. Baynesy kind of found himself, I think, and found a bit of a niche role on the team in guarding LeBron, in guarding Antetokounmpo as well. Yeah. And just all around massive defensive rating. Yeah.
I think he really showed his defensive ability out on the perimeter. I think was where most of the time he did a lot of his damage. He had a couple of notable sort of defensive plays on Embiid too in that Philly series down low. But yeah, he really held his own against LeBron, which was massive. I mean, not sort of like the clamps or anything like that, but still able to sort of help his team out and really help him sort of get over that hump against Cleveland and force them to a 7-game series, because after they tore apart the Raptors, the Cavs, that series could have, elevated the Cavs into an elevated state and ripped through the Celtics. But the Celtics, I think, are born out of a defensive framework with Horford and Baynes in their front court that I think is going to be a good sort of crucible for their team to build over the next few seasons, with Kyrie coming back, you're right, with Hayward coming back, as well as, another season for Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Marcus Smart as well, he re-signed, which was a big sort of thing over the summer where I think Kawhi, there were sort of like some rumors where they were really going to go all in on Kawhi, but some of the demands that...
Well, I don't think they could pay for the roster that they have with Kawhi there. I think they would have had to have given away quite a bit.
Yeah, like Hayward, and like
had
that
to
would be
trade
kind of
Irving
pointless, really, signing Hayward to the max and then getting rid of him a season later after he got injured, or even Kyrie. Or I think the Spurs came in with some crazy demands. So that was obviously taking some time out of Marcus Smart's deal that he was negotiating. I think he was an unrestricted free agent. But eventually, Kawhi went to Toronto, and then they re-signed Marcus Smart. So they got pretty much their whole team back, which was good to see.
Yeah, Greg Monroe went to the Raptors. So that's
right. Yeah,
that's good for Baynes. That's going to give him more time because there's less of that kind of opposition. But I think what really Baynes showed was his defensive prowess against like the likes of Embiid, Simmons, Antetokounmpo, big names, body, big name centers that are taller than him and have larger wingspans. But I think Baynes has more of that stocky kind of tough build. 6'10". I say stocky, he's fucking 6'10".
Yeah.
But
that kind of bricky's defense,
Yeah.
It's not finesse stuff. It's real sort of just girth and using your feet and wanting to get in there and bang bodies with people and keep them away from the rim, which, helped them through that playoffs run. Like, obviously, through the regular season, he was decent, but found himself in those roles where, right, we've got to roll up the sleeves and get into a dogfight.
Yeah.
He was right there in it, which was, he got a lot of props from Boston and from,
essentially earned him his contract.
Yeah, I think
his next contract.
So the Celtics, they had a decent season. They finished second. They went on that crazy run at the start. I think they had 17 games unbeaten to start the season after they lost a couple of games. Brad Stevens is still their coach. He's a very good coach. I think he's a very important piece of their puzzle.
Very tactical.
A great tactician, a good motivator. A lot of them speak pretty highly of him. So another guy who obviously we want all of our Aussies to play and play well, but under the right conditions. A lot of our guys are going to excel if they have the right coaching and the right system and the right framework. So that's good for Baynes. They were third in opposition points against, so that says a lot about their defense last year. They had one of the slowest paces, which is very interesting because they have Kyrie. Obviously, they lost Hayward, but they have Kyrie, who's a very can turn it on type of player, which is interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they play a little bit quicker this season. They obviously haven't made any roster changes, so I wonder if they try and play a little bit quicker.
I think they'll try and play a little bit quicker. One, because I think they've got the team to do so, and they've got they really have the perimeter completely covered with guys that can shoot, like Jaylen Brown. Even Bainesy from the corner picking up a few. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Hayward, and Irving. You've got this whole perimeter just ready to go. I think there's going to be a lot of defending at the perimeters and cutting inwards.
Yeah.
And
a lot of shutting down opposition shooting and shutting down a lot of pick and roll, which will be it'll serve them well, especially in the East, because the East is not a very run and gun style conference. Like the West is where all the run and gun teams are.
Yeah.
So obviously it'll hold them in really good stead coming up to the playoffs against those Eastern Conference teams.
Really, the nemesis for Boston this year is Philly.
Yeah.
I think that these two teams, unless Kawhi pulls out some sort of miracle and plays every game and actually gets behind it, the Raptors, I think it's Philly playing Boston as the big kind of arch rival game of this year, and it's really about what the tacticians are and how they play off Simmons and how Baynes obviously plays against Embiid. Because I think Al Horford's good. He's getting old.
Yeah.
Fantastic, defender, but the triple threat of Embiid and the ability of Simmons to play point center, if he can shoot, I think that. We saw in obviously the finals or the conference semifinals that they just sat back off him and that really changed the dynamic of the game. But it'd be good to see how they kind of tactically look at Simmons if he becomes more an outside threat, because as soon as you bring that man up, Simmons is going to blow by him. So where does that bring in the picture? That allows Embiid's play more ISO because they're not going to come across and tag team because they know Simmons isn't going to shoot. And that's going to lead to more Horford, Baynes one-on-one with Embiid, who is a freak of nature, really.
Yeah, well, taking that double team away from Embiid, and usually it was last playoffs, obviously, against Philly, it was that double team that really sort of destroyed Philly. Yeah. Being able to double team, like being able to bring Simmons' man into double team Embiid was really sort of what changed that series. I mean, it was a 3-1 to the Celtics before they won that fourth game.
Yeah, it was 3-1 to the Celtics. But again, there was a couple of games with stupid decisions.
Yeah, silly execution errors.
Execution errors at the end that could have been easily 4-3. But, I think Boston probably deserved to win it in the end.
Yeah, it felt like in the nuts and bolts of that series, Boston had a little bit better of a dynamic to take away that aspect of Philly, which was Ben Simmons' guy comes over and doubles Embiid immediately, and there's no threat. So this year, obviously, you're going to be looking at a different Philly at the top of the conference for them to play against. So that's going to be really interesting if they make it all the way. Obviously, with Kyrie and Hayward, it's a totally different story as well.
Totally different. And again, it's probably going to be a different style of play as well. But I would like to see Baynesy starting. I think he will. I think he'll start. He'll play probably 16 to 20 minutes a game in that kind of center rotation into power forward.
I think they've got a bit of a logjam of their team a little bit. Like Kyrie coming back with Hayward coming back, obviously a 1 and a 4 means one less sort of power forward, small forward, which obviously you've got Brown, Tatum, and then Marcus Smart and the Morris twin, or one of the Morris twins too. Yeah. They've all got to squeeze in there somehow. And I think is that sort of pressure is pushing up on the roster, which means Tatum, I think, is going to play a little bit of 4 as well, which means there's probably going to be less Baynes and Horford on the court because unless you've got quite a slow team and a slow lineup that you're playing against, I don't think you're going to see Baynes and Horford be on the floor that much this season because they've got guys like Tatum and guys like Smart and Morris who can play 2, 3, 4, which that's going to hurt him a little bit. But I think at this stage of his career, he's in his place where, boss, I'll do what we need. That's fine.
Yep.
Even if I shoot 2 or 3 corner threes a game and play defense, no worries. As long as this team's going to go to the finals, I think he'll be happy. Because he seems like that sort of personality.
I guess he's $4 million a year. He extends his career a little bit more because he's not playing heavy minutes, and we get a good Boomers prospect.
Yeah, and hopefully, he's fit for that World Cup and then the Olympics coming up in the next couple of years. So he's secured, so 2-year 10.6. So what's that, 5-3?
5-3, which is decent.
Yeah, pretty good.
It's not vet min.
It's good. It's an investment in Baynes, which is big for him. Like, they obviously want him. I think he's a good culture guy. A lot of them have sort of said, he's a good culture guy and he's someone who is important to their franchise, which is really good for him and good for the league. And the Celtics, they obviously re-signed Marcus Smart to a 4-year 52, which is important for them. He's a good defensive player. I think he was injured in that final series. He played with a broken thumb or a repaired thumb that wasn't even anywhere near healed yet, which is crazy. And also Baynes broke his nose at the end of that series, that Cleveland series too.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
So he had surgery on that, I'm pretty sure, in the off season. But so to cap off, they made the conference finals, lost to Cleveland.
Yep.
That was tough. Going through the Bucks felt like there was a gauntlet of teams there that, you played against Giannis, that ISO that you have to play a very solid block style defense. Then the Philly, which was the run and gun, pistols at dawn type scenario that they won through that, which took them to the Cavs, which was a bit of a mix of both.
Yeah, they could be either hot or cold, the Cavs. That's the thing. The Cavs of last season could have been on. If J.R. Smith it's feast or famine. So really you got J.R. Smith. If he's feasting, chances are you're probably going to lose. because he took so many shots. He's feasting. He's doing well. You got LeBron. And Tristan Thompson, I think, played well.
Yeah.
I think he really did come out after all the bullshit and obviously with the Kardashians and played a good defensive style of play. Obviously not very good from the line and that affected the Cavs, but still defended quite well, played well in the post, rebounded offensively quite well. That gave him a little bit of an edge.
I think that was something that changed that series too, with Baynes being able to use his size. He obviously had to plug into their defense something different with Tristan Thompson, who came back and gave him that different presence. And I think Baynes he tackled it well. Obviously, Horford's there to rebound and box out, but Baynes is also there as a guy to eat space. And Tristan Thompson's a guy who is very vertical and can go over the top of a player like Baynes. So he did well to sort of adapt to that, but in the end, Cleveland just were too good. I feel like the Cavs kind of squeaked by them a little bit.
I think realistically, Game 7 comes down to Terry Rozier going cold.
Yeah, and Marcus Smart, I think, shot 1 of 12 or something.
They just went cold. And in that respect, there's nothing much you can do. If it's not your night, it's not your night. I mean, the Cavs didn't play that much better as well. It was kind of a very scrappy, low-scoring affair. But I would like to see how Hayward fits back into the picture this year in that 4 spot, or potentially even playing some guard spot. And because they've got so much kind of jam log at that 4, Smart and Morris, Baynes, does then Baynes rotate into the center position and they rotate Horford and Baynes?
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do, because Hayward can sort of play 4 as a straight up 4, and then obviously he's not going to handle the ball. Like that's the versatility that having Kyrie Irving and Hayward bring, is that Hayward doesn't need the ball to score, which is really important. And at the same time, if he does have the ball, or if you need a bucket, he can go get you a bucket also, which is important. So I wonder, Baynes is really the odd man out of all of those guys that isn't an offensive player. So
he's solely defensive.
Well, in a roundabout way, that kind of works in his favor. That he's also that one guy who you go, all right, he's a defensive presence. He can eat space as well as rebound and box out. Don't worry about scoring. That's fine. You're only on the court to defend. So I think that gives them a little bit more of versatility to maybe play him at center, you're right, and play Hayward at the 4, Tatum at the 3, and then whoever they want, or maybe even Smart at the 3, and then Brown and Tatum. They've got such a wealth of riches and a little bit of a headache of stuff to do, but their culture seems pretty good, so it looks like they're going to
they'll get minutes,
manage it pretty well. But on paper, they just look devastating, man. They look like they're going to...
They do. See, for my mind, Philly kind of didn't make the off-season moves on paper. They got rid of a couple of really key players in Ilyasova and Bellinelli, obviously, who went out. Ilyasova went to the Bucks. Bellinelli went to the Spurs. And they didn't... Mike Muscala.
Yep.
They didn't really bring on pieces. I think
Wilson Chandler. Yeah.
They didn't really bring in the pieces to get the team coherent. I think they're really relying on this year on guys stepping up.
Yeah.
And that's a bit of a worry for a team that, okay, right, you've got potentially the 3 best young guys in the league. But what have you got around them? You've got Cove, who's a great defensive player, and you've got JJ, who's getting into the kind of
he's a veteran presence, though. I think he's an important player. He can still knock down shots.
Well, had his best scoring year in the league. So
and that's important too, like to get your team on a roll and be a veteran. He's a very selfless player and a very sort of smart player.
Yeah.
Very veteran savvy, which is important for the development of those young guys as well.
Yeah. Well, we just for me, my mind, it's the depth. Like, what do we do in the depth aspect when Philly playing Boston? And that's where I think really Boston has the edge. They've got the depth to go to. They've got the rotation. They're 2 or 3 deep in some positions. I mean, that's nuts. Kyrie's obviously had a bit of an injury-prone career. if they stay fit and healthy, I think they do give potentially a Golden State or a Houston run for their money.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I think so.
So it'll be mainly their health. Kyrie's knee. He's had a couple of surgeries to fix some of the stuff, take some of the screws out, and I think there was some infections and stuff like that. A couple of things that have been gone undiagnosed too, which is like the loose screws and stuff like that, which can slowly derail a career, but if fixed, can give you a new sense of life on my body now. Like suddenly I'm not getting those silly little injuries and the little things happening, which would be important. But the Hayward injury obviously is a massive injury for him.
I don't think you ever fully recover from an injury like that.
It was a bad break. I think it was a double break.
Yeah, I don't think you ever fully recover. I think he can come back, but it's almost like the Bogut injury. Is he going to protect himself?
Yeah.
Is he going to be the same player that he was, or is he always going to worry about if that goes again? Ankles don't heal properly ever.
It's still always amazing, like how they come back from injuries like that.
We've got the best doctors, the best rehab programs, and the best medicine in the world.
Yeah.
The thing is, in America, if you have money, you will get better.
Yeah.
Cancer, they have the best of everything. But if you have no money, you will get fucking nothing.
You will die.
you pretty much will die. You will get nothing because they don't give a shit unless you have money.
So, yeah, Greg Monroe left, which is good for Baynes.
Yeah.
They signed Jabari Bird, and they drafted Robert Williams, he's also a center, but a project center, like not a ready-to-go star type of...
He'll be there if there's injuries.
Yeah, I think maybe they might try and bring him through this year, but I don't think they're going to try and bring him through. He might just organically come into the lineup, get some minutes. I think
minutes.
Baynes as a mentor will be interesting because he has that veteran ability, as well as Horford's the same kind of IQ, pass it down type of player that you want, taking care of these young guys. And I still feel like they dodged a bullet on Kawhi. Like I don't, they would have had to have done too much to the hack and slash their roster and all that sort of stuff
for no guarantee. And he knows where he wants to be, and it's not in the East. He wants to be in the West. So
fairly the same, but still crazily dangerous.
I think Boston win the East this year. I'm a Philly fan.
Yeah,
I want Philly to win.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think they can win. I think if this lineup stays healthy.
It feels like that stacked Golden State type mentality.
Yeah, it's a stacked lineup with good young players. Not all of them are all-stars, but it's like,
it's a nice mix, a nice blend. They're all, none of them are the super raw young, like it feels like Boston are what Philly will be in 4 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Simmons will be 4 years into the league, kind of a bit like Kyrie and, Hayward. Embiid will be like the same kind of thing as Hayward and Horford. Like they feel like they're further along. It was kind of a bit like Houston and Golden State, where Houston felt like Golden State about 4 years ago last year, where, we've sat through these games where these guys go cold and miss all these shots, and you're sitting there going, oh, we lost because we just missed shots. We kept trying to hit shots and we lost.
Yeah. And
like I've sat through those games, and a lot of people like, oh, but they were none from 27 away from possibly winning that game. And I'm like, I've been there. I've watched these games where you go cold and that's it. You just keep trying to hit these buckets and you get in your head that you're going to try and win games like that, and it doesn't happen. But at the same time, with the Celtics, I feel like they've coached well enough that they've got all their bases covered, and they've got a lot of different angles and a lot of different wrinkles they can throw into their lineups and their roster. And on the court, they've got a good dynamic, which, as well as Philly, I don't feel like they have that. I don't think Philly has that full-on, ready-to-go, a wrinkle for every single situation.
Well, I still think they had that to the back end when they brought in Ilyasova and Bellinelli. I think they brought in two. Ilyasova is a great defender, great scrappy offensive boarder, and Bellinelli, who's another catch-and-shoot player. And I think that's what they've missed in this round of off-season is the Zaire Smith curse. He's gone. He'll be out for 12 months. He won't play this year. I didn't rate him that highly anyway, to be honest with you. They've missed that. They've missed that opportunity to pick up a catch-and-shoot player.
But a forward of some sort.
Yeah.
Is that with Ilyasova? What was Bellinelli was playing small forward, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was playing small forward.
So
they've lost 2 guys and they've picked up 2 kind of vet, not a lot of minutes in the last couple of years. Like Ilyasova and Bellinelli were playing major minutes for Atlanta before they came to Philly. And, that's been missed. I think that with Fultz coming back as a second ball handler and TJ potentially going to a shooting guard, they're missing... I mean, Saric is still a great player. Don't get me wrong. Saric is fantastic power forward. They're missing that backup power forward spot.
Yeah.
I think they're missing depth. They're missing depth in a couple of positions that they filled and then they went on a crazy run with.
Yeah, it felt like they were they made the break and they were, in the open field running ahead of everyone trying to catch them, as opposed to like an NFL where you're looking at the defense and there's 2 holes and you need to make those steps and make it through the defense to get to the top. Yeah. Which is where I think if they do end up playing in the conference finals, I feel like the Celtics have more tools to get in and rip that open and really expose that, which you got to be worried about as Philly. I don't know if they're finished building. Like, it feels like they're finished.
Well, I think they're finished building on the front end. They've got no more lottery picks. I think they've got 1 more first-round pick next year. And they've got a stack of second-round picks. I think they've got 10 second-round picks in the next 2 years.
They had about 4 or 5 in this draft as well.
And then they sold them off for 2 more picks.
But they look like they could have picked up maybe 1 or 2 more sort of depth players.
I would have liked to have seen that, but I think Brett Brown obviously
they lost their GM too.
Yeah, but Brett Brown stepped into that role. I think he's done a great job at rebuilding this Philly team and pinching the talent. So you trust him in that. I think they had a lot of promise in Zaire Smith. And obviously the Philly curse, he's going to be out for a little while. But they didn't pick up the right veterans for that, for my mind. And they've struggled in that 4 spot over the last 2 seasons. Even last year, they struggled in that 4 spot until Ilyasova came. And then they had the backup for Saric. Because Saric, I think, plays a really good traditional 4 with shooting ability, out of his ears. But when you come
and that's where I think, again, that's where if you had 2 of those guys, like if you had a clone of Saric.
Well, you did in Justin Anderson, but then they traded him to the Hawks.
And then obviously your main aim is to space the floor against the Celtics, right? To try and get Baynes out of that center position and trying to get Horford away from the basket. It does feel like like you can just get the knife in there and start. Look, it's all come unstuck.
Yep.
And again, it feels like Philly's 4 years behind where the Celtics are now, which is another aspect of a winning team where you have the veterans and you have the ability to win games and win.
Well, but for my mind, they've probably got 2 years.
Philly.
2 years.
Oh, you reckon Celtic?
Well,
Celtics.
no, Philly.
Yep.
I think they've got probably 2 years before, or 2 years, in 2 years' time, they've got to offer Simmons a max. Realistically, because you're going to get a max somewhere.
I think they'll give it to him. Of
course they'll give it to him. Yeah. He's worth it. They then have to offer Fultz a max, realistically, because he's probably worth a max somewhere else. Suns will pick him up. He was going to get traded for Kawhi, so that's how much the league has faith in him.
Yeah.
That's what the picks was Kawhi, for Kawhi, it was Simmons or Fultz. They didn't
I would have given Fultz.
They see something in this dude.
As not a Philly fan, I would have definitely given Fultz for Kawhi because Kawhi feels like that 2, 3, 4 piece, the versatile piece is defensively that they were really crying out for. Maybe they whiffed on that a little bit, and that's why the rebuild has felt a bit.
Yeah,
unusual.
I think we've yet to see the magnificence of Fultz. I think that's where we're finding it could be a bust or boom. But really, that's 3 guys on max. It's kind of hard to build a team of then second string around that, because really, they're the big picks over the last few years. So I would hope that they pick up a 4 potentially back end of the season. Maybe a 2-way deal gets waived, and they pick up a decent 4. But again, that's my line.
So obviously, maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, sort of talking about the Philly-Boston Conference Finals. Toronto will have a little bit of a say in that. But apart from that, maybe Indiana.
Yeah, maybe an Oladipo. But again, they could have a really cold season.
You just don't know. Like, that franchise doesn't seem like a franchise who has all of the pieces there. Like, it looks like that Cavs series that they played.
Yeah. Well, you would have thought Toronto had all the pieces, and then they get whitewashed by the Cavs.
Yeah, they've got some sort of mental.
They got some mental break
which
issues.
I felt, even though all that stuff happened with Kawhi and DeRozan, and it still felt, and sacking Dwayne Casey after winning Coach of the Year, it still feels like the Warriors have such a grip on the entire league that instead of digging in and galvanizing your franchise, which is what the Celtics have done, in my opinion,
and same
a little bit as well. Some of these other franchises seem to just be going, kick it over.
Let's start again.
Yeah, or like, bugger it, we've lost already. Don't worry, we'll just kick our franchise over and start again. We'll start hacking and slashing at our rosters and really doing damage to this and that, and which is kind of what OKC have done, a little bit like what Spurs have done. Those other teams in the West are all doing the similar sorts of things. Houston. So I do wonder how well that Celtics roster is going to bubble back to the top. Yeah. Especially the vacuum that LeBron leaving has given them is like almost an open door. Like, the door's open. Like, here you go, guys. There's a spot for you.
Yeah.
There's a big power vacuum to be filled. And I think Philly, the Celtics, the Raptors, maybe Indiana, and then beyond that, I can't even name teams who I think...
Maybe a Charlotte. Charlotte has a... somewhat decent roster.
The Bucks.
The Bucks are one for my mind. Is the Antetokounmpo factor?
There's a sneaky Bucks type feel.
Yeah, they go so. I don't think they have the right 1 and 2.
Nah,
as a main, I think Delhi runs a good backup point, and that's where it's good. But I don't think they have the right 1 and 2. And playing Antetokounmpo at the 5,
I
don't like it.
I think he's too gimmicky at this stage of his career to run the entire offense through him. I don't think he's that. But now they've got a new coach. Who knows what they're going to do with that?
Yeah,
as well.
They'll definitely be there. They'll definitely be there. I think they've made some good moves. Ilyasova is a big pickup.
Apart from that, I have no idea who in the East. It's just such a... That's good. That's going to be an arms race between Philly and Boston and Toronto, which will be great for the league as well, because I think another year of Philly sort of strengthening, like galvanizing their position and building on what they built from last year will be really important to their development, in the sense that if they make it to the finals to tie it back in with the Celtics, it's a good galvanizing of both of their franchises. And if the Celtics can keep that team together for the next 2 or 3 years, I think there's rumors of like Kyrie Irving not re-signing. Maybe
he wants to go to Knicks with Jimmy Butler.
There's different front office type stuff happening, swirling around there. Yeah. It still feels a little bit like you're holding the drinks together, just barely holding it all together. Whereas some of the other less stable franchises don't have their shit together ready to pounce. But it feels like Philly's one that does, and the Bucks are maybe one that does, apart from Toronto. So I think Celtics, obviously we're going to do an over-under pod.
I think they take out. I think they take out top seed in the East.
I think they're good for probably 50 to 60 wins. The other thing too is the Warriors' culture of it doesn't matter in the play. It doesn't matter in the regular season. Just get to that 50, 40, 50, 60 wins, whatever.
Yeah.
Play at 70% until you get there, and then 100% turn it on for the finals. And I think with how comfortable the league is in general, with how well paid some of these guys are, there's a lot less sort of sniping around the edges and really cutthroat behavior now. Like, they're all friends, they all know each other, they all work out together, they're flipping a switch on a game day, but at the end of the day, knowing, you know what, we do this for a living, and just being here's great. So I feel like some of these franchises are starting to go, like, to question why they're even playing basketball as a, going through the season. Why are we winning 60 games? Who cares about that? Like, just make the playoffs, and then we'll play the playoffs because that's where all the action is. So I wonder if the Celtics fall victim to that a little bit.
I don't think so. I don't think Brad Stevens will let that. I think there's a culture of winning. There's a culture of wanting to be the number one seed, getting that home 7th game. I think that's a big important thing. It seems to be in the playoffs is having that home seed, and I think that's where they'll want to be. I think the West will be a lot more cutthroat, and very, very, very jam-logged back in that middle section. But for my mind, Boston probably between 55 and 65 games.
Yeah. I just think a lot of them are not going to try and get to 60 wins, because you saw what happened to the Warriors when they had that 73-9. They got injured. They were buggered, through the playoffs. They were tired, and at the end of the day, it's about winning the championship.
Not the actual. Who cares what seed you came? It's really winning the trophy. Winning.
And at the time that you're going through each day-to-day of the rigors of the season, you don't feel the hindsight of, if we didn't go for it, then we probably would have won the championship. Or, we didn't go for it and we squeaked through these games, but we won the championship. So you don't feel that as you're going through it. You look back on it. So I wonder how that sort of plays into the mindset of some of these guys. The Celtics have got such a wealth of riches in their lineup that maybe it comes a little bit unglued because of that. Yeah. Hayward will be muscling in to try and get his spot back. It really is the Tatum. Like, Tatum just shot up out of that thing. Like, I'm here now.
Yeah, middle of the pack kind of.
Which is a little bit, could be a double-edged sword. Like, he's now presenting them some roster problems that could very well sort of, unless he sits back and goes, right, I'm happy to play 55 games this season, take a seat, because I'm a rookie, I'm a second-year player, or whether he goes, no, I'm the second-year rookie, I'm here to play every game. I played every game last year. I'm here to play. And then you've got Jaylen Brown as well, who's a little bit like that also. I wonder, it seems like that roster is so filled with different players all sort of spiking out in different directions. Yeah. And the problem is going to be being able to control how all of that works.
Well, you look at the Warriors, and you've got your 5 stars, and then you got Min. And they know their place. They know where what they're there to do. They know that they're there to play 10 minutes, 7 minutes, 6 minutes, 5 minutes. Yeah. They're on minimum contracts. They're part of the picture. Boston, they could all hold a franchise in some way, shape, or form. That's a big thing to kind of sort out. They're all, too deep. They're all franchise guys.
Yeah.
Jaylen Brown could be a franchise 2 or 3. Tatum could be a franchise 2 or 3. Terry Rozier obviously wanted to be picked up by the Suns, tried to pick him up, so that's a franchise 1. Your 4s, Hayward, Smart, Morris, they all could be franchise guys. How do you then glue that all together for any more than one season? For me, this is the season. They've got to win it. They don't win it this season, they're not going to win it.
Because it feels like that Golden State roster was made in segments, like 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year, and that's like every year that set of 4 players is going like in a chunk. Every year the chunk moves along a little bit further, whereas the Celtics roster feels like it's like the spikes sticking out everywhere, and
it's like, all or nothing.
Kyrie Irving leave. Obviously, if they everything falls over, and say Kyrie Irving leaves, Horford and Baynes are getting a little bit on, and they leave in the next season. As long as they keep Hayward, they've got a chance to rebuild that franchise. But he's 28, turning 29, I think, this season. So
getting on, but the LeBron factor, people can play into their mid-30s and still be pretty useful.
And I think it's going to be great to watch fuck's sake, it's going to be great to watch, man, because it's going to be good. They play good basketball and they play the right way. That's an important part too.
Play very old school. Cool.
And it'll be great for Baynes too. So
yes. Yeah, we're looking forward to him. Hopefully seeing some Boomer colours soon.
Yes. That's next week, isn't it? 22nd?
22nd. No, we've got a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
A couple of weeks. Right. But we won't see him this. We'll see him in the FIBA World Cup, I would dare say. Or if we get into trouble and don't qualify. I think they'll bring them all back.
Yeah, I'd say, they probably bring at least Simmons maybe into the fold. But hopefully, they will, the Celtics that is, they will go on and have another good season this season, and then we'll see Baynesy possibly in the finals. I think that's the best case scenario, is that Celtics make it all the way.
I think, from my mind, they make it all the way in the East. For
them, and then obviously when we do the Simmons and Jonah Bolden...
Yeah, we'll be talking about what
Philly
happens.
Making it all the way.
Yeah. For me this year, Bolden's an unknown... I think a disappointing summer league from my mind. It has the potential physically to be pretty fucking awesome and be that 4.
There's your 3-4.
He's not that 4. He's not that 3-4
I suppose,
this year.
He's not the defensive 4.
He's 3 years down the track. He's like Baynes. Like Baynes was in G League playing backup minutes and then finally gets to 30 and has developed into a fucking good player. That's Bolden for my mind. He's not raw talent off the bat. I think he's talent, but he's not raw off the bat. And he's that 4-5 year development cycle. And he will get to a place where he is a first team roster, but he's not there yet. And I don't think he's even a second backup to Saric.
Well, he's got the physical tools. I mean, he's got the wingspan, the defensive IQ. It'll just be whether they can plug it in to that spot.
Right, guys, remember, like, share. All good. YouTube.
We've got Paddy Mills and Deng Adele coming up next after these, and then the Bucks, and then the Jazz.
Doubles.
Then we'll
drop Philly.
Philly to run up to the preseason starting. So very close to when preseason starts, we'll drop that. We're going to make it a good one. We're going to get it out there. We're going to try and give it to as many people as we possibly can and make sure people see it, like, share, and subscribe to it. And hopefully we can get a little bit more exposure. And again, if you've gotten this far, we thank everyone for listening. We've got a lot of people listening now. So, it's great. It's obviously a different angle, looking at the NBA through the eyes of an Australian who's in Australia watching the NBA on TV. Obviously, we can't be there to watch in person and get into the culture, but it's, I think it's good for people to give their views no matter where they are, whether they're in Europe or Japan or Asia sort of thing.
It's understanding the rise of the basketball era of Australia, really.
Yeah. There's about 5 or 6 sort of youngish players, plus maybe 5 or 6 in the pipeline that may even develop enough to get into the NBA as well. So definitely. I think this is the most we've ever had. Was it 11?
11 until Mangok. Yeah. This is it, really. And if Deng Adele gets that contract,
or Mitch,
Timberwolves,
Mitch Creek.
Or Mitch Creek. I think Mitch Creek's is safe to say Brooklyn have not the best roster. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed.
Not the best franchise to be battling your way into either.
But he gets a start. At least he gets game time. That's for my mind. Anyway,
we'll be back next week with another episode, which is Paddy Mills.
Peace out. Looking forward to Paddy.
See ya.